evening. Welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have on Jesse Hughes. How are you? Been a while.
Excellent. It's been a little bit, but I'm glad I'm here with you now. The laughing monkey. I love that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't know if you remember why I called that Laughing Monkey Music. Uh, Way back was in the '90s when like one of the Love Bone came out. Remember that band? And the singer Andrew Wood, before he died of heroin, he had like a little video special. And this is just a weird thing of me. And he
Oh,
says,
the
"Oh,
weird video specials of the '80s too and
yeah,
'90s.
like
Those were great.
like it was like the VHS thing."
Yeah.
And it says, "He goes, my." They go, "Why'd you name the band Mother Love Bone?" He goes, "Mother Love Bone." He goes, "Led Zeppelin," and he had a whole thing with the three things:
Oh, right, right.
laughing, monkey, music. So I tied that with all the things I liked. I like laughing, I like monkeys, and I like music.
It's
And as I
awesome.
say, the
The
Laughing Monkey
three big ones.
Cheeseburger would not be a good music show, so I went with music.
Yeah,
I
some
love
people it's
cheeseburgers too.
family, God, but no, just kidding.
Oh, it's yeah, we live, laugh, laughing music, laughing monkeys. To me, you know, the charity of it. So we've been up to, man. It's been a little bit. I know you've been busy, and we're gonna catch up on like on Tuesday and stuff too. So
Well, yeah. The Tuesday is my never ending battle, if you will. But we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Would you go answer my door, dude? Would you? Something. I just got a ring. Sorry. But
no,
musically, it's also a never ending story. Um, I've been writing new music. I've been working on new music, and I've also been going. I've had the pleasure of going to see some of the new Queens of the Stone Age tour in different cities,
oh
and it's
nice.
been a spectacular achievement to witness. I I haven't had as much fun in a long time.
The
So
2015, 16 was like the last album you guys did as a
yeah, it's
band.
been about 7 years since we released. That's actually an interesting. It's kind of when we make the new record that we'll be making within the next few months. Uh, it'll be like setting a pattern of every 7 years we release a record, which is
I
kind
did
of
see
cool
that.
because we toured the albums for 7 years.
Well, I mean, but people are. I have a little scorecard. I mean, let's say we had the plague that was the fourth and the death for a couple of years. You've been dealing with the struggles with Tuesday's health. Um, Josh has had his marriage things, and he's got his life back together again. Like everyone's starting to feel like they're back on. The new album came out for Queens. Like there's a lot going on with you guys. The
Yeah,
balance to
we're
get back to
desert
where we are
kids.
now.
I think that's where the one of the first similarities are. We were raised the same, and you spin plates. Life is like spinning
Yeah,
plates. It's how you can keep them all spinning, and the game is the method in which you approach keeping the plate spinning. Otherwise, they all come crashing down. And we're really good at spinning plates.
well, I guess the real question is for me is I'd also say one of my first albums was your solo album. I heard like various parts of the Eagles, but my first album I had of your stuff was actually your solo album in 2011. I
Oh, I
remember I
love you
played it,
for
my
that.
kid, and I'm gonna tell you, my kids loved it too because it was such a fun album. You know, um, so to me, that's like, oh, this guy from the Eagles. Just they went back and they kind of back treaded it because I consume so much music of all types. Like you, I listen to everything. But to me, it's all consuming. And I was like, that album for like the summer, that whole summer, it was just like always in my player because I could play it with the kids. They loved it. I loved it. It was perfect.
You know,
You know,
that's I love that album very much. It's a very important achievement for me, and that record is about fun. Tuesday. That's when I first met Tuesday. So that whole
yeah.
album is inspired by this grand love affair that was taking place, that was developing into the love of my life.
And that
And
was 13 years ago, right? So 2011,
yeah,
the album came out. So you probably recorded it around 2010, probably.
yeah.
Okay.
And that album was recorded with Money Mark. He's uncredited, interestingly enough. I don't know why the label decided to do that, but he produced that album with me.
Who did?
Money Mark, the one of the main
Okay.
dudes from the Beastie Boys,
Yeah.
and I can't wait to do more of those. But the way I've approached it is that I do it right on time, not at a certain time. I've always been fortunate in that Joshua made it possible for me to pace myself,
Hmm.
literally. So an album, I've always looked at Eagles of Death Metal like the Special Forces of rock, or like the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus of rock. Like it's an eternal thing. I'm eventually going to look at, like Menudo, the band Menudo. I'm eventually going to look for the Boots Electric replacement when I retire. For real, I think of it
You're
like
gonna
that.
age out. No, don't.
I truly look at what we do as like quintessential rock and roll. Like we're not going to spring anything on you when you listen to an Eagles of Death Metal album. There's never going to be a moment where you're going to go, well, that's avant-garde. You know what I mean? Like, I love rock and roll, and I almost feel like we're carrying a banner, if you will. We're maintaining a flame, and thinking like that, that attitude will dictate how you'll allow for things to happen to you as well. It's what you see as possible. So I've never looked at anything being possible. I look at everything as possible right now, and everything's always more than anything. That's a much
Well,
better.
the thing is, like, when you talk about like along the band, like replacing it, I can think of like uh the guitarist from Ricky from Leonard Skinner. He's Blackfoot, right? He actually had people
Right.
come in and replace it. He was one of the first guys that did that, I think, for like bigger bands, had replacement members. Turns out it was a nightmare, and he actually ended up doing. I don't think it's ever been a successful
I
thing.
actually saw Rick Ocasek do that.
Oh, he's done it too. Okay.
We were rehearsing. This was when the Cars did this tour a few years back, and they were rehearsing at the same place we were. And I was sitting outside smoking, and Rick Ocasek comes and sits down next to me. But I was sitting so I could listen to them rehearse. And I looked at him, and I was like, "How are you?" And he goes, "No, touring's not for me anymore." So I asked my friend Todd Rundgren to stand in.
Oh, Todd, yeah.
So he replaced himself with Todd Rundgren, but his attitude was so cool about it, and it really affected me in a way. Like, it really put me into a moment of really deep thought, like of contemplation, because that was fascinating. He was so cool with it. There was no ego attached to it. He wasn't like mad. It was his decision. It was just like, I could see almost instantly that this was a dude that let the facts dictate the terms of his decisions, and it was nothing personal. The band needed to be served. The music required something, and he served it. That's exactly how Joshua and I look at it. Joshua's always said one of the first things he would say to me is, check your ego at the door. When you come in here, let the music tell you what it wants, and we'll just make it the best song we can make it. And that attitude of letting kind of it tell you what it is, as long as you have high standards, I think you're going to fall on safe ground. You know what I mean? And when it comes to music, especially, you let the facts dictate that. So I really want Eagles to live forever. So I'm already thinking, like, I want like Channing Tatum to become me, or I want like, maybe like I could do like a Brad Pitt thing, because even no matter how old he gets, he's still beautiful. Like even Antonio Banderas, like I could do a Latin. There could be a Latin phase of Eagles of Death Metal where I get like a Ricky Martin type person to come and be Boots Electric, and he dons the mustache, and because that'll be a requirement too. You have to wear the mustache with honor, and so I've got this grand vision of long after I've died, many generations later, the earth is under siege from all points. You know, governments are becoming just dystopian, but the new Boots Electric, this Boots Electric is going to be who will don the mustache today. You know, like that's, and when you
like,
look
like
at
the
it
makeup
like
for
that,
Kiss, right? Like Kiss's makeup.
exactly. Maybe one year it'll be a woman. She'll don the mustache to keep it edgy. I don't know, but looking at it like that allows for a lot, and it allows for a lot of patience and longevity. You know, I was always inspired as a kid by thinking about the people who planned the freeway system. I saw this documentary about the freeway system, and the dudes that designed it and planned it knew they were going to be dead long before it was even halfway finished. But they designed it anyway, and allowed for it, and their whole life was dedicated to this singular process, the same way that the engineer of a single pyramid probably dedicated his whole existence and maybe multiple generations of existence to this end. So that's a little, it gives you the attitude for staying power anyway.
You want to be the engineer though of the highway, not the guys on the highways when you're driving along and you're like, exit 24, exit 23, like they're else they're adding exits. You want to be the guy that did the highway system that's all set, not the guys that are adding on later on because they didn't think about it the whole way through.
Right. You don't want to see South Africa literally built a freeway across of it from both sides, and it didn't match up.
Yeah.
I shit you not. It's in the middle of Johannesburg. They use it for filming now. Probably it was the government making a private freeway, but the whole freeway, as they turn these corners, it's misaligned by a football field's length. So you can literally go, I shit you not, dude. It's one of the greatest civil engineering blunders in history. And it's now this empty fucking freeway that's like 4,000 miles long that meets where it doesn't meet up. It's crazy, dude.
You don't want to be those guys. You want to be the other guys that do the other lines.
You don't want to be some guys you don't want to be.
That's pretty funny. So, all right, I'm buying into it. I like the Antonio Banderas, and then you could do a kids version too because did he do like Shrek and stuff? So you can do like Puss in the Boots Electric. You can go
Dude,
everywhere
like
with this.
we'll look at it as the Hot for Teacher video. That will be a whole phase of Eagles of Death Metal. Will just be the kids as us.
There you go. That'd be fun.
Deep. I've always wanted to remake the movie Twins with
Yep.
Antonio Banderas and Brad Pitt. Because why does one have to be ugly and stupid? They can just be different. You know what I mean? Like one's spicy and the other one's like, Mr. Corn-fed, hunk. I think that would be something where they wear a lot of male bikinis.
Totally feels like a movie from the '80s, though. Like Look Who's Talking.
Well,
it literally
the
feels like
hottest
the same
movie
from the
the
authors.
80s.
Yeah, from the writers of Look Who's Talking too. And,
we're gonna update it.
She's having a baby.
We'll spice it up. That's what Antonio's for.
You are doing recording for Eagles?
Yeah.
Are you gonna
In between this current tour that Queens have been on, I've gone to them and hung out with them. But Joshua has been spending a lot of time at my house, and I guess you would call it pre-production, which for us is just two friends hanging out, talking about what they want to do with music. You know what I mean? It's kind of it's one. I can tell we both treasure this process, and it's both like a respite for us because it's become so meticulous in how we approach it. It's got to be a certain way. It's got to be like, and it's just us hanging out. It's awesome. So everything with Eagles of Death Metal always begins with this great, wonderful sensation. You know what I mean? It always feels special. That's what I love about it. I think that's the thing that I most love about Eagles of Death Metal is that with as long as we've been doing it, it always feels special.
It feels to me like you've always had a sound, and that's what kind of like the songwriting process. Like first album, you guys came out, and and like only a few bands come out with a sound like they come out with they're established. Like your first album, you established who you were, like that was it, and then big spots between the albums. But then you toured and you played out, and I think right at the gate, you guys were pretty successful on some levels. Like you kind of hit hit the ground.
We were very fortunate, man, but that first album was it was the most critical phase, and I feel very lucky in that I came into the business so late in life. I'd already had a family and been on an executive level and operator of a business and businesses, so I had a little different experience when I came, and I saw immediately what my goals were and requirements were and what the dangers were. I mean, and Joshua, because he is the most unusual person in rock and roll, and that he is the most sincerely wonderful person that you will ever meet in rock and roll, and honest. The very first night he drove me to Hollywood to record the first record, I could see he was so distressed in this drive. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he goes, dude, he was so worried about the effect that show business was going to have on my life that he was inspired to come up with this list of rules for how to conduct and it was the most inspired 2-hour drive I've ever been a part of, where he was like, I love you, dude, and show business will ruin people's lives. People will destroy their lives for probably not going to make a chance. And so I was like, I understood that he didn't want, my soul in hell on his conscience, I guess is what he was saying. So
yeah,
he gave me this inspired pep talk, if you will. And I looked at it like golden rules, like absolute science, and I followed it implicitly. And as a result, I've been able to overcome what would normally be a death sentence, which is being a side project.
Well, that's interesting because it's not fair to call it's not a side project.
It's not.
I know it's been a battle, and I think you had that. I would say one thing though before you. I think fairly it happened, and Josh being a friend does not take away from the fact of the album's good, and on your own you're good. Because if Josh, doesn't matter how good a friend he was, if you sucked, no one's going to see you. There's been no second album. I mean, that first album blew up everywhere. So I mean, you were given an opportunity, but you also used it, and you had the tools to take advantage of it. It's not just
That's the key.
there's more to it than that to just say, Josh, because that's not who it is. That's not that solo album just came out. You right when that came out, you're like, see, it's me. I just needed a chance. I'm sorry I said
Well,
about you, but I wanted
that
to
was
get that out there. It's been in my mind last time we talked about that.
I had a mission when that album came out. I knew that the kids were going to show up initially for Josh, and that's totally cool. So I've always looked at it like this. I've never been in Joshua's shadow. I've been in the shade. And you got it made in the shade. And climbing a ladder is very difficult and exhausting. Getting to ride up on someone's coattails at all is awesome. That's always how I've looked at it. So I knew that they were going to come for him, but I had to make them forget about him once they got there and leave thinking about that was my goal. And I had to do it in a way, for me personally, especially, and to protect our friendship, I could never take the bait of jealousy or of feeling undermined or in someone's shadow or anything like that. I've always looked at it like he's the captain of our gang and I'm a chief lieutenant. You know what I mean? Sort of in our empire, because Josh had a massive empire plan, if you will. And I've been an instrumental component to that, if you know what I mean. Because there's no denying the effect of both of ourselves on each other across different bands and the insulating effect and protective effect that, even though it was never even directly, even going through Joshua's troubles as he went through, I was still able to protect and be there. These things are beautiful aspects of it. But I just suck at guitar, and that gives me a unique sound. Some people, and I don't mean that in an overly self-deprecating way. You could say that the Rolling Stones sucked at being Chuck Berry, and beautifully. So whatever I suck at it beautifully.
And it's funny. I always say that, and I'll have someone in my shows like a best guitarist ever, right? Like shred, whatever. And I'll be like, what you have going on right here now is the world's best guitar player, and the world's worst guitar player would be me. And one thing I've learned is all the best guitar players they don't know theory. Most of them can't read music. They don't. Some of them can't do covers.
Yeah,
they can do what they do well, and that's it.
And I also understand that there's a fundamental difference between a lead guitar and a rhythm guitarist.
Rhythm's hard.
Everything I do, all my music is drum based. I use the James Brown operating principle of music, which is everything is a drum. So I literally treat every instrument like a drum, and therefore it fits together like Legos. And that's what gives it. That's one of the elements that go into giving it its quirk, its uniqueness. It's that I'm rhythm driven. To me, it's just like a basic sex manual, an arrow pointing this way and an arrow pointing that way with the words in, out, boom, 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 boom. That's, to me.
Did you play drums when you were younger? Did you ever play drums?
I played drums. Yeah. I was a drummer in marching band. I started off with flute.
Yeah, I needed a flute. One time at band camp.
Yeah, exactly. And, but I was the bass drummer in the marching band.
Okay. That makes sense.
And drums I always approach everything as a drummer, which is what makes mine and Joshua's communication in Eagles of Death Metal so awesome and so tight. We also, because we played soccer together, we went to high school together. I genuinely love and admire the man. He's the best friend I've ever had. We have an unspoken communication that's beautiful. This wouldn't work with anyone else.
No,
it couldn't work with anyone else. I couldn't. There couldn't possibly be, because nobody has the history that we have. I mean, I've known the dude since 1979. That's a long fucking time.
It is a long time, and I think it's good. And I think, like I said, in the past 5-7 years, he's also had some trying times, and you being there is something that I don't think a lot of people could be there for, because where he achieved, he needed people that were with him from the beginning and not some other outsiders. He needed people that were with him, and in his interviews and stuff lately, he's come out the other side a different person. It's great.
But true to who he's always been. See, that's
I just feel like he seems like he's more.
You have to change, but you have to adapt to situations, but it has to be based on a fundamental core of values.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I think having someone like you there allows you to always be him without having to worry about he can just let his guard down.
Well, we always know one thing. We know that I know when he's talking. He's the one person in this whole world that I don't have to fucking worry when he's asking me or telling me that there's another agenda, that there's an ulterior motive, that I never, under any circumstances, do.
That's good.
And everyone that he's introduced me to, which is a small group of people, but when I first came into the business, he goes, "You're going to have the friends you come in with. I'm going to show you a few friends." Those are the most rock solid friendships I've ever get. So Joshua brought me here and he pointed out, you can trust this. And then that's all I've done. There hasn't been anyone new since then. I mean, right now at my house, I have friends that I've known since I came into this business, who I've maintained my friendships with, who have been, and there hasn't been anyone new really. You know what I mean? Like Joshua gave me some of the finest instructions that you could ask for in this business, and guidance, and putting a protective umbrella around me so I could have the room to fuck up, to develop who I was, to become who I was going to be. These things are important.
Well, you came out of the gate with your own personality, though, too. You came out with not maybe something to prove, but I mean, you came
No, it
out
was like
like
being a werewolf my whole life, and I didn't see my first full moon till I was 30.
Well, was it
And I
Dangerfield,
loved
right?
it.
Was it Rodney Dangerfield? He didn't become a break as a comedian until he was like in his 50s or something, I think, something like that, right? Like, so,
Yeah,
I mean,
see,
it's not
there's
unheard of.
no rules.
No.
There's no rules, and you truly can do whatever the fuck you want. You really can. You just have to do it.
And you have to determine what your success is going to be. If you want to be a musician, are you going to be happy just making your music, or do you think success is being a celebrity? Like the people that go on
Exactly,
my
dude. I
Instagram
mean,
account, beach is the pages of the feeds. They'll have like the guitar on the beach, and they'll say the musician. Like these feeds that get
right.
always hitting me, and it's like I'm like, there's no music on here. It's literally just these pictures of like some kind of Vogue magazine. They're not even a musician. So I mean, it also is like what you want to quantify your success is in that
Well,
world.
there's performance artists. There's, you know, David Bowie. The reality of David Bowie is he's one of my favorite artists, but he ultimately didn't write a lot of his own songs. I mean, he was always with a partner, Mick Ronson. He was or it would be Brian Eno, or
Right?
it would
Yeah.
be, you know what I mean. He's always had, but he's always stated, "I'm a performance artist."
Well, I mean, he was smart though. He lined himself up. Adrian Belew, he actually got
Like no
from
one's
Zappa.
expecting Britney Spears to write her own music.
No, but Britney Spears also has one of the best pop songs ever, though. You know,
And an incredible performance personality.
yeah, but she also knows her music. I mean, there's a level, and
But
I
my
actually
point is like, for me, success, I would never try to. For me, it's not about being as famous as Britney Spears. You know what I mean? My success is measured in the fact that I'm still standing in here. I'm still in the ring, taking
right.
punches, and I'm ahead on points. You know what I mean? That it's not about he who dies with the most toys. It's he who dies not expecting it in the middle of their job.
Well, so it's really interesting. Like you did the regular, we don't get your life without the cameras and the success, right? And then it's changed. You got to live with cameras and stuff, but you also came in at a time where like also got Instagram and this and that. And we come from a generation we were just earlier in the 80s, we're almost the same age, where that wasn't there. And now you're breaking it a little bit later on. You come in, all that's the evolution is right there. Also, you're being filmed, you're doing that, you do your movie, which I've never seen still. I've only seen clips. I still got to see it one of these days. I got to say also on a side note,
Vice documentary came out the week of the attack in Paris. So it literally the week. So it affected, how what was seen and what wasn't.
yeah, I only saw a trailer stuff, and it's weird because like now that I've known you since like last year, we'll text once in a while and stuff. Now it's always weird once I know somebody to go back and see something else like as that because it's like a different part because it's just always
Right.
so different at that point because it's like oh okay, I see you differently now. We talk differently. You're not the same person, and it's always great to talk to people because and I think hopefully people see when they watch this, it's more of a voyeuristic thing. They're respecting the artist as a human, as and you see the other parts of the artist. They're not just whoever these people
Right.
think a
And
musician is with a celebrity.
I've always worn my heart on my sleeve, and
Yes, you have.
my attitude has always been, I'm a rock and roller just like everyone else. We're all here for the same thing. And there's no velvet rope at my shows. I personally am constantly hanging out with the fans. You know what I mean? I'm always in and amongst them. I think I'm probably one of the most accessible artists that's ever lived. Probably, I love people. I love people that love my music, especially the first tour we did with of Europe with Joshua on drums. I would finish the set and I would run with two buckets of candy to the exit and hand out candy and go, "Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it." That blew people's minds, but it was also how I really felt. You know,
Yeah.
I was really happy. I was really stoked that I was getting to do this. And I really loved the kids that made it possible, which is probably one of the keys to our longevity. You know what I mean? I genuinely love them.
Do you think though, because of the time you spend now on the camera? I mean, a lot of us have done because of Zoom, but prior to that, you spend a lot on stage. You talk to me like one on one now, but then you do a concert where it's a couple thousand, 15, you know what I'm saying? And then next thing you know, you're talking to singly. Has it gotten to a weird point where you're like everything just kind of flashes together? Because then when you do your Instagram, you're doing a story and people are talking to you and you're on camera then. Your documentary, people live with
There's
you.
a high potential for it to all blur, but it's all an attitude and approach. You know, like for example, autographs. When I've seen so many stars, quote unquote celebrities, just get irritated at having to sign it, or always like, oh God, they're going to be walking outside where there's going to be fans. But that's looking at it like this is the 10,000th time I've done this. I don't look at it like that. Every time I meet anyone, I always am fully aware immediately of this is their first time. And
Well, you're still singing though, right? I mean, of
that
everything.
little
So
attitude change, dude, it makes it so I'm able to remember people's names. I'm happy to be able to be involved in their first time. Like in a way, it's almost a superiority complex. It's like, I know I'm amazing. It's one, isn't it awesome? Come here. It's awesome, right? It's, you know, in a way, but it's ultimately true. It's how I feel. And so I never am worried about it. I never feel this overbearing weight of, oh God, this is monotony and it's blurring on. It honestly never feels that way because I'm not carrying that. I'm only, oh, in the moment, this is your first time. I take a picture, whatever I do. It's that moment. Now it's resets. And I'm telling you, man, that outlook has provided me with the ability to manage things much, much better. I knew Joshua was a platinum selling artist when we went in to record the album. I understood exactly what that meant, what opportunities that afforded, what type of spotlight would be on me, what type. I was fully aware of it. So I looked at it like, I'm just going to do what a rock and roller is supposed to do. And I went wild. It's the only job in the world where you're supposed to. I
I
took
think everybody's
advantage
waiting
of
for
that.
you. I think when it came out and they're like, "Oh, Josh," when they had you there, that people were like waiting for you to come out the front door with him to judge you. When you stuck out the back, it came up behind everybody and said, "I'm here." Like I don't think people expected it. I think that is what doing the graces, but the attention from one to the other, I always thought would be kind of, especially like doing it later in life, like it would be just a weird dynamic at first to change.
It
Not
is. Well,
not
I
an
mean,
arrogance.
I was a
It's like
father.
having
I
somebody
was
say,
in the middle
"Yeah,
of a custody battle. The vestiges of my square life were literally in a pitted legal battle with me. Yeah, there was definite weirdness, dude. And Herculean sized issues had suddenly fallen upon me. And therefore, the truth is that there's a big part of that that goes into being blessed and having a very merciful God and good friends, you know what I mean? And being blessed with having a wonderful mother. And really, what's really carried me through is moral integrity and the ability to maintain that, which is almost impossible in our business, you know,
how are you
and
keeping?" Yeah, I'm sorry.
Joshua made it possible.
Your energy level. What are you doing to stay awake so much? You are up all hours of the night.
51, baby.
I do that, but I throw my back out 53.
You will see, but see, my job is different hours. So when people say like you're up at all hours, I mean, I get that, but that's like being weirded out because someone's coming home from work at 3 a.m, but they work the mid
I'm
shift.
not. Yeah,
No, I'm
I'm
not
just trying
saying
to put
you're
it out there
weirded
for
out,
other
but I'm
people.
saying no, it's a fair question. But I rest appropriately, but I don't want to miss anything. And
Right.
sleeping sucks.
I do
Sleep
agree
when
that
you
way.
die. My grandfather always said, sleep when you die, son. Life is now. And that's how I
No,
look at it.
I don't sleep very well. That's why like I'll text you like it'll be like 3 o'clock in the morning for me. Like I just wake up in the middle of the night and I'm up for the rest of the day. So I don't sleep a lot. So I know I cut your
Perfect.
hours because, well, to me, but we were talking earlier about like people's views and trolls and stuff, and so people always say different things with your hours and stuff. And you talk about drugs, and I'm like, all right, where are you at to keep up your energy level? It doesn't have to be drugs, but I'm saying we're putting it out there as far as people talk about and accuse you of
Dude,
things.
truly, the energy level that I have, the truth of the matter is that drugs really aren't going to do much. This is attitude shit, and this is probably a lot of genetics and natural ability. I mean, honestly, I don't know how I do it. I just like that's again my superiority complex. Like I'm the dude that pulled the sword from the stone. I I, I really am. Like I don't think Arthur could tell you how he did it. I just
No, I,
compared myself to Arthur. I love it, dude. See, come on, this is rock.
but I do. But I think that's the point. A big part of it. I think is always going to bring out the talk about it from it because people. I think the things that I've seen people say or whatever, and it's only because I've been reading things lately on your Instagram or different accusations or even notes on my show when you were on. People say some crazy stuff, and I'm like, you can't live that life and do that kind of stuff and keep up the energy
Oh,
and
have
doing what you're
people
doing.
put commented
Oh
accusations on
God,
my
yeah, oh
Instagram?
yeah, yeah. Oh, this is on my show, but you were on too. So I'll get the comments that come in, and I've heard some crazy, drug ones lately, and I'm like, it wouldn't balance out to be what they think you are. And I think it's
Well,
fair to talk
whenever
about it
anyone
to
says, I
counteract
get
it.
those drug comments all the time in lives, but my attitude is like, okay, wait a minute. So I get it. It's an easy thing to say. The only reason anyone ever even knows about drugs in my life is because I've been honest. But
Well, that's the whole
that
thing. I
being
think
said,
it
that being
makes you a
said, when
target.
someone brings it up, I'm like, okay, so am I fixing a VCR that's not broken? Um, am I putting out a fire on my face with an ice pick by picking it? So, and how many times have you seen my mugshot in the? Am I not being able to record records, or I literally in the last 2 years? Check this out. I won the Mint 400, the longest running endurance race
Yeah,
on a professional level in America. That I won first place after placing second the year
congratulations.
before. I just won the Dio bowling tournament. Like I released a Christmas album and a covers album, and now Josh and I are recording another album. Is that? I mean, if that's the truth, then everybody should have my drug problem.
Well,
And
that's my
here's my
point.
phone number, and maybe I can help you out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't bother me. The only way it matters is if there's some true element to the derogatory cliche. Otherwise, it's just a name.
Right. Well, I think it's fun, and I think one of the fun things that you say, like, I don't usually, I'm not like a dirt digger, but I think as we talk about it, it makes you think about. It. I love to take something that people are making these remarks, they always say these jigs, and I always know it's not the same, and to bring light to it and talk about it because, like, there's no way. My favorite one was someone says, "Yeah, put down the crack pipe, like you're doing crack." Who is successful doing crack? I can't name one person who's ever done
That's what I'm
anything
saying. Like,
successful. Like that is bananas to me.
normally when you have a comment like "put down the crack pipe," it's the picture of someone coming out of jail after
Yeah,
they've been arraigned
right.
and they look all crazy, or it's the
All your
picture of
clothes in a
Nick Nolte.
blockbuster bag. Yeah, yeah.
It's Nick Nolte's mugshot. It's like that's when you put a comment that says "put down the crack pipe." But like Evil Knievel landing a jump and someone goes, "put down the crack pipe, Evil." It's like, well, okay, great. I want that crack. Where's that crack? Like,
So there's a level of, I mean, well,
it
shame. There are
doesn't bother
recreational
me.
drugs, right? No, but it was just kind of something I wanted to put out there because I always read the comments. I like to just kind of put that out there.
I think
It's
most of
fun,
that shit comes from people who don't like my politics. And that's the
probably.
low blow that they get to try to undermine. Normally, that type of shit is the shit that people say when they have a problem politically and they're just trying to say something mean and derogatory because they don't have a political argument. You know what I mean?
I can see that. See, like to me, I don't take political things. I don't go after people in a certain way. I have my own opinions, and I give everybody else a chance for theirs. I can be friends with somebody, good friends with somebody who I don't agree with because I respect
Yeah, I mean,
everybody's thoughts.
I'm always leaving open all possibilities, including that the person speaking is fucking wrong. I always allow for that possibility too, dude. And
Well, yeah,
sometimes that's also true. And
we're the own
artists
players in
like
our
me who
movies,
have a
right?
modicum of success, we get to a point where it's an interesting place for us. We can't always protect ourselves from getting involved by saying we're artists and we're neutral. because at a certain point, your voice, your platform gives you an obligation. Suddenly you now have a responsibility to use that as an individual yourself for the moral convictions that you need to stand for. And that's when it becomes a test for most people, man. So
do you think though it's an obligation, or there's a certain point where you as a performer and entertainer and an artist can also have a personal opinion that can be separate, that you don't have to be responsible. You're responsible for your art. Like at what point is a line? And that's the kind of gig, like an easy one would be like that Bono gets. No one cares about this Bono. Bono's like, half of Ireland's starving. I want to bring notices. Like, so it's like there's always a balance
every
of like,
situation's situational. And
and
for
no one wins from
example,
this fight. Everyone gets gigged
I'm the
on it.
victim of a terrorist attack. I have an insight and an experience that gives me grand ability to be empathetic to what happened on October 7th in Israel.
8 years just happened.
Yeah, just passed.
How did that affect you for people
Well,
that, you know, in a real
done
world?
in the name, the victims groups that have developed, the Life for Paris, these groups that I'm part of have really contributed to the group. Like, I really feel like a larger majority of those of us that were there have come to a place of healing than would have otherwise. I mean, I'm very, very proud of that. And 8 years is a long time, but it's gotten to a phase of time where we're sort of like solemnly remembering, but we're also able to not have become overly victimized by it.
Well, I think this is important for people to get as close. Like, I hope me and hope no one else ever experiences that. But the fact to talk to you and to share that, I appreciate you. And thank you for sharing this important thing. I know you've shared it before, but it's just still appreciate it. You go through a PTSD, you relive it every year when it happens. I mean, any your other band members, and then I know I've heard, I think it was you said, Joshua said, there was a guilt because he wasn't there because he's your bud and with the band. So there's all these different emotions.
I believe every wound, whether it's physical or spiritual, the wound leaves a mark. At first, it's open. Sometimes you need stitches. Sometimes it leaves a scar. The emotions and the psyche and the spirit are the same way. I've always understood that bad people are bad and they do bad things, and so I wasn't overly shocked by what people did. And I have a profoundly deep faith in God, and that combined made it so that I always accepted that it was going to fucking suck, the recovery process, but I made myself available to repetition. I made sure that we had as many I made this band go on tour as soon as possible after that attack, because I wanted as many shows between us and that event as humanly possible. I encouraged and made everyone do things like take firearms training. Like, I wanted to get us back on that horse as fast as possible. I did not want us to rely on security. I did not want us to grow accustomed to needing that. I didn't want us, especially, to let the bad guys win and showing anything. But I live in a free world, and I'm not going to hide, and I'm not going to stop dancing or let the bad guys change me. And it all started with simply a decision in my heart. I made a simple promise to myself. I'm not going to let the bad guys win. I'm going to spite them at every turn. Nothing they've done is going to change me. And that took a Herculean effort, because it wanted to change me badly. It wanted to destroy me. I mean, the truth is that the first 2 weeks after that attack, I don't think I was ever going to get on stage again. There was no way I was going to get on stage again. That was where my head was. Like, I was so horrified at being bait in a trap. That was the hardest part for me there, is I loved the kids so much, and I take so seriously the concept of friendship, that the idea of me being cheese in a trap against my friends was like the fucking worst thing in the world. And I was so overcome. I was never going to let that happen again. And maybe at the time I didn't understand what that meant, but I didn't want to ever get anywhere near a stage again. I easily could have given myself over to being scared to even look under my bed, but the idea of that fundamentally and constitutionally isn't possible for me. And, looking back, I guess the only thing that anyone really gets, the only thing that you get from this type of experience is perspective. That's really it. All you get is perspective. and what you do with that is what you have to determine. And I wanted to be able to sit across from my mother at a dinner table and be able to look her in the eyes. And that was a real operational paradigm for me, because after that attack, dude, I've never been in anything like that. I don't know anyone that's ever been through anything like that. I had no frame of reference and I didn't know where to start. And I had just promised, made a solemn oath to myself that I wasn't going to let the bad guys win. And I had no idea how to undertake that at all. And I was looking to everyone that had been there that night. The first shows we did, we would do interviews and people would say shit like, "It's really brave of you to come back here." And I'm thinking in my head, for real, like, I had security. I was like bravery is the one that had their best friend die and is about to get in a metro subway alone and go through the underground subway and come up on a dark fucking tunnel and walk into the shit. That's fucking brave. And when so many people returned and showed up for us, that the second week after the attack, we went and played with U2, and then a month later we were back. That the amount of people that showed up for us touched me, but it showed me that I had a responsibility, and that's when rock and roll kind of changed for me in a way that I suddenly realized, for whatever reason, what I did from here on out was going to affect a certain amount of people, either positively or negatively. The Life Repairs group will protect its own. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a commitment that I made that I'm going to see through. And I've never looked at it as a burden. I'm grateful. To me, it's like one of the greatest honors I've ever had, is that I've gotten to be a spokesperson for this group of people that have passed through this event. It's truly, my prayer is never normally give it to someone else. My prayer is normally make sure that please help me do it right so that I fulfill it, help me last. That's the prayer that I look for. There's a lot of shit I want to do. I want to be able to make it to the finish line, Well, our entire fight, if you wanted to sum it up, was having Tuesday diagnosed properly. She was misdiagnosed at the emergency room, which has led to a devastating injury to her, where she's unable to speak and walk. But our entire legal effort, everything that we've been trying to amass up to now, was about forcing the medical system to move her. She was what's called the subacute ward. In every hospital, they have a subacute ward, and that's the death ward. That's where nobody's going to live, where nobody's expected to live. It's an independent part of the hospital. It's a death house with different types of doctors and nurses. Nearly impossible to get someone moved from that. Once you're diagnosed as that, it's permanent.
And terminal people go in there? I've never heard of that. I mean, I'm not all knowing
that's
either,
where the old go, where nobody wants them, or someone who suffered is brain dead and on a respirator and nobody wants to take that kind of stuff. So
that's horrible.
It's a reality, though. So getting her out of this was nearly impossible. That's been our struggle. And what it took was a nurse who had been assigned to Tuesday's floor like 8 months ago, cared about her, was transferred, and then came to visit her. I can't say what it is out loud right now because we're in a legal issue with it, but
no, just the fact
notice something that was so egregious. For the first time, a medical professional couldn't turn their back on it. She went to her floor, told her chief nurse, and I don't know how to describe it, but what amounts to essentially a rescue operation by 3 nurses on a Sunday when everyone went home. 3 nurses, the chief nurse from the floor up, came down to the subacute ward and physically took possession of Tuesday at the protest of the nurses down there and have forced the change in her diagnosis.
That's beautiful.
So for the first time, she's on a floor where they're actually talking to her, where, we're able to have discussions in terms of her recovery, where literally it's like for the first time, she's a living person again in the eyes of the medical community. And so that's the linchpin, which will result in she's going to be home permanently in a couple of weeks.
What is her communication like? You don't mind me asking. And
she is unable to verbalize anything. She's just starting to track and
like
look at people.
that's okay. Yeah, so that's communication.
Recognize that. She can eat on her own. We know she knows what's going on, but she was never treated properly for her injuries. So it's been these type of head injuries. They can take up to 3 to 5 years for the brain to recover. And but we're seeing it. If she had been having help all along, we might be through this process already.
Right.
But because it wasn't like that, because we're behind the gun, she still managed to do it on her own slowly. Like, she's the toughest girl I've ever known in my life. Truly the toughest girl I've ever known in my life. Literally, the hospital had her under a known pharmacopic regimen of hospice. It's not officially stated, but when doctors prescribe a certain combination of drugs to a patient, any doctor will tell you they know that they're trying to induce cardiac arrest for the purpose of euthanasia. And she was on that regimen of drugs. We've actually proved that in court. It's one of the issues, but she survived that. She survived starvation and dehydration like you and I can't imagine. Imagine having a catastrophic injury and then motherfuckers are trying to starve and dehydrate you and induce cardiac arrest. I mean, that's one of the things that was revealed to me in our medical system. But
no, she gets better. It's gonna be Tuesday's Revenge. It's gonna be a new horror film, and she's gonna be
dude,
mad.
it's gonna be, and believe me, she'll make it, and it's gonna happen because no matter our best efforts have only all we've managed to do is keep her stable. Every major event in this story has been God. I could never have made a group of nurses feel a conscience burning motivation to defy their own medical coworkers and physically remove a patient from one. When does that happen? You know what I mean?
It never does it. And I hope that starts some. Also, I hope that leads to some other protocol that it can't happen again, and these nurses brought a change. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain things that happen.
That's California is one of the most corrupt legislatively. It's gnarly. It's bizarre. It's bad.
I'm just being hopeful. I mean, that's that guy.
The lawsuits that we're going to file in Tuesday's name may do that, though.
I mean, here's an example.
That they're on your side.
Right. Suing's good because you got money, it helps you out, but it's not going to help people in the long run if you can, really
that's what we've been. That's what all of our efforts to do with legal recourse have been, and it didn't do anything. It took an act of God to move her along. But it's happened at every stage in this event. It's kind of been in its own way a miraculous thing to witness, is the hand of God in your life. Not many people have that opportunity.
And what we're doing is, so people know right now, there's going to be a link below in this podcast or on YouTube.
Tuesday's Army. You can go to Tuesday's Army. You can type in Tuesday's Army on Instagram. Or go to any of my social media, and it will direct you to the means by which you can get involved. Join Tuesday's Army.
So get involved.
Trust me, it's the best thing you can do. Very important thing.
Very important to do, and donate and help because you're raising money. So if Tuesday comes back, is there a certain situation where you need nurses, or you're going to be?
Yeah, but we've already. I'm excited for this. We've sort of designed our own physical recovery program because I believe she can fully recover. I do. So I've never looked at this like we're trying to find a way to just get someone to feed her every day. I want to give her every opportunity to recover. So we have a physical rehabilitation regimen that we've designed. I've gotten most of the implements here at my house. I'm going to be building her own traction device. I mean, this is the love of my life. You know what I mean? And I miss her. And I want her back. And so if I end my life having only just made her life more comfortable, it'll be a victory for me. You know what I mean? So I intend to fully. I'm telling you, I believe that she is going to fully recover. I believe that she will be with me on your show answering questions to you.
And I would love that.
It's going to happen, dude.
Just hearing the initial part of the story, because, once again, people know, Tuesday was involved in your own safety and your own life back with the events in Paris.
Yeah. I could really credit her with getting me out of there alive.
right. So I mean, it feels even more full circle. Like you're like, I wouldn't even be here now to help you. Like it's so intense on a level where it's not just I love you, and of course I love you. You want to help out that person. You're like, I wouldn't even be here to help you if it wasn't for you to
and,
begin with.
and I can tell you this, looking at how this event has unfolded with her, sometimes I could reasonably question, is the only reason that I lived through Paris was to make sure I would be here to help her. You know what I mean? Like it's not an impossible thing to see, because God really loves this girl, because everything we've done hasn't done much. What's really mattered is these crazy things that nobody could have predicted or ever expected to happen.
Well, I mean, don't you think like mostly the world happens, and then our lives happen crisscross the world. Sometimes mostly bad stuff, but good stuff happens while the world's happening.
Yeah, but there's the law of averages. Things will normally work out the way
Yes,
they should.
there
And
is.
in the medical situation, you're not normally going to get it worked out in your favor. Otherwise, there would never be a Tom Clancy novel.
Well, this is an anomaly. This whole thing is just such a what happened to
It's
her
an
and how they
anomaly.
misdiagnosed it, and the way it just made one thing into worse into just a freaking nightmare. And they tried burying it. I mean, it's just so much. And I think definitely once you get this legally taken care of, we can talk about it. There needs to be some kind of documentary style
There
where like
absolutely has to. I love you for
it
saying
has
that.
to be. I
Absolutely.
mean, I mean, a book would be good with the details, but I mean, it would be good to get a documentary like Colin Hanks would do with the Paris thing, where they're sitting down and there's talking, and there's medical people, and there's like it all gets down visually for the world because I think people need to know what happened. I think it needs to be broadcast because
Yeah, and I actually want an Aaron Brockovich style movie made to
yeah,
really, you know what I mean? Like whatever
well,
it
no, because
takes to.
people need to know that because there's not going to be you. You are you. You have resources. You have a community. You have fans and friends and followers. Some people might not have any of that, and all they have is themselves and no access to less money and resources. And they have a friend, a lover, a spouse, a brother, sister, parent in that situation, and they can't do it. This is empowering you once you help her to put it out there for other people. Like this could be
Yep.
bigger than anything you've ever done. You know what I'm saying?
No, I think it will be. I agree with you. Whenever I think this will be,
That's what the
I
potential is right here. It's just how to get it out.
bingo.
Obviously,
I love you for saying
obviously,
that. See, that's what I'm talking about. Wish it, want it.
well, I mean, yeah, Tuesday's obviously that's a no-brainer. It's that's going to happen. But what else are you going to do with this energy? What are you going to do with this situation? This can't just be like, okay, Tuesday's good, and well, I'm mad at you guys. No, it's not
No,
about that. It's not about the money. It's not about. It's about
the reason why it happened to her is
recouping it.
because it was easy for them to do it, and it can't
Right,
be easy.
right. No, they need checks and balances. They need to not
If
be
they can do
insulated.
it to one of us, they can do it to all of us.
Right. And that's the other thing. Like you were here to help her, but I don't think it's just here to help her. I think you're in this position
Yeah,
to
I
help
think
more than
she's
one
here
person.
to help many, and
Right.
I get to serve that.
Well, and she helped you, so you're helping her. So it's a team effort. But you get the point. It's
Absolutely.
community. It's community, and you could refuse it. You could be like, nope, I did my best. So you could walk away. Everyone has. We all have choices. So it's a good thing that you're doing it. It's not like you're being forced into it. And
I love you, dude. Thank you for this.
I think it's important. Oh, thank you. Right back at you. I think we'll keep doing this. We'll do our shows. We'll keep talking. Yeah, I'd love to have Tuesday on. We're gonna keep doing these things. And my brain just starts thinking like, how can you keep putting it out there? How can you go after them in a way where they're not insulated, where they can't go after you? Like, how can the people know in a legal way? I mean,
I'm never going to stop thinking about that, because I will find a way. And we've had some victories. It's a slow process, but I'm in it for the long haul. So they never met a dude like me. You know what I mean?
well, I mean, once you win, you're gonna win the legal things. Once you get those out, the first things you can do is just present those legally as facts, and there's nothing they can do because you're just presenting legal facts. And that's half the battle right there for you to put it out there and protect you.
Speaking of Tuesday, I need to go to Tuesday right now.
Okay,
I need to. I just realized it's
yeah,
5:20, and I'm going to go read to her right now. And
awesome.
the best way that you make sure that your loved one gets care is that you show up all the time. And until she's home, I'm also trying to get my head into. I'm going to be taking care of her in a full-time way. I might as well get committed to that a little bit. But she's just had some procedures done, and I want to make sure that they know, as far as I'm concerned, she's the only girl in the hospital. And the nurses are more likely to be thinking that if they're worried about me showing up at any minute.
The squeakiest wheel. It's a shame, but it's how it goes.
And you
You
got me
know,
all inspired right now talking about her. I just, because I miss her all the
yeah.
time,
Well, I mean, I can't think about you without thinking of her. I mean, that was how inspiring I was talking to you. I mean, it stayed in my mind ever since it happened. You know, and I've always checked in on you to see how things are going. I can't make out your things. I'm like, what's up with Tuesday? You know, how are we going? Like, what's going on? So I'm very, you know, hopeful, you know,
we brought her
for
home for
you.
Thanksgiving, and her cats, this was the first time since her injury. It was like they suddenly recognized her again and they were jumping up on her. And that was
Oh,
to me very telling, you know what I mean? And she did, I
yeah,
mean, it was wonderful. And you see this light recovering, you see this light coming back, and it's a beautiful thing to be a part of. And it's, I'm very grateful for it because, to be honest with you, there was a period there where I thought I was going to lose her. And I didn't want to admit it out loud, but I really was thinking that I could lose her. And that was a sustained agony that's difficult to describe. That was a 3 month period where it's difficult to describe. It's in suspension.
yeah,
It's like impending doom. And because I was so scared I was going to lose her, now that we have it, I have a very bizarrely fierce inability to leave her unprotected. You know what I mean?
I totally respect that. You know, I very, very much respect what you're doing and helping her out. I want you to, so we'll end this and I want you to see her, read to her, you know,
And then
get
I
her
think
better.
you and I are going to be following up again because we still have big plans, you and I, dude.
Yeah, I know. Well, like I
Okay,
said,
dude.
all right, brother,
Later.
take care.